Awesome. Hey, Sebastian. Hey, Hercules. How y'all doing? Deepest apologies, had some technical difficulties, but we're going to go ahead and get the show started. What's up, DC Scores? I see y'all in the building. What's up? Shout it out. Where you from? Where you school? What school you from? How old are you? What's up, Jonathan? Hey, Teresa. Yeah, we got some celebrities in the building. We about to get this thing cranking. But y'all already know, for those who have been in this session for our celebrity guest speakers Wednesday, y'all already know what it is. Okay, Van Ness in the building. I see ya. Barnard Bears. I love it. So before we get started, we got to set some housekeeping rules. First and foremost, for the chat, we want to keep it here. We love y'all talking and engaging and listening and interacting. And we want to do that. And we want to keep the chat open. And the way that that can happen is by y'all just being positive in the chat. We're going to be positive. We're not going to say anything negative. And we are not going to spam. Oh, well, Ms. Blackwell, what's spamming? Spamming is when you just type a whole bunch of nothing into the chat that has nothing to do with what we're talking about and just keep typing it. That is called spamming. Please do not do that, because then DC Scores will then have to shut the chat down. We've only had to do that. I don't think we've ever had to do that. I don't know, but I don't want today to be the first day. So that's it. Please, y'all, engage, talk, have a good time, but let's keep the chat open by being good sports and making sure that we are using the chat for what it's there for, which is to engage and pay attention to our wonderful celebrity guest speakers that we have in here in the building tonight. So let's go ahead and get things rocking and rolling. Any questions? Great. All right. So thank y'all for being here. We are super, super honored to have our second celebrity guest speakers for this fall season, the DC Scores, and we have two amazing guests with us today. But before we get into our interview, we're going to talk about who these people are, just in case y'all need your memory refreshed and maybe you just don't know who they are. They are amazing people, so let's go ahead and talk about them. First person that we have with us, y'all may have seen him at the Poetry Slam. Y'all may have seen him as your coach on the field. We have the one and only Sebastian Salazar in the building, y'all. Make some noise, show some love in the chat, and let them know how you feel right now. So Sebastian is a really awesome individual. He is a host, anchor, and reporter for ESPN and a longtime DC Scores supporter and soccer coach at Garrison Elementary School. Garrison in the house. Drop some love in the chat. If you're in here, you go to Garrison, show your coach some love. Born and raised in Washington's D.C. area, Sebastian is a graduate of Walter Johnson High School in Bethesda, Maryland, and Westminster College in Pennsylvania. In the summer of 2018, Sebastian covered the Mexican national team at the FIFA World Cup, appearing on ESPN, ESPN Deportes, and ESPN Radio from Russia. During his time on ESPN, he was also covered the International Championship Cup, the U.S. Women's National Team, and the Little League World Series. Goodness. He also regularly contributes to various ESPN podcasts. Prior to joining ESPN, Sebastian hosted a variety of pre- and post-game shows for the NHL, the NBA, the MLS, and the NFL at Comcast Sportsnet Mid-Atlantic. So yo, shout it out. Show some love for Sebastian in the building. This is a great individual. I've met them personally on many occasions, and it's just an honor to have them as a longtime supporter at DC Scores and just a great human being in the world. All right, our second guest that we have with us, we have the one and only Herculez Gomez. Make some noise, show some love in the chat, let them know how you feel, because it's about to go down. Herculez Gomez is a former professional soccer player and a current bilingual commentator for ESPN and ESPN Deportes. Born in Los Angeles, California, and raised in Las Vegas, Nevada, Herculez is a Mexican-American and played soccer professionally in the U.S., Mexico, and Canada. We got a professional soccer player in the building. Some of the clubs he played for include LA Galaxy, Colorado Rapids, Toronto FC, and Seattle Sounds for the MLS, and Santos, Tijuana, and Tigres in Mexico. Excuse my Spanish, trying to brush up on it a little bit. And Herculez represented the U.S. men's national team during his soccer career, where he played in various international tournaments, including the 2010 FIFA World Cup in South Africa. So y'all show some love for our celebrity guest speakers. Yes, these are celebrities. These are famous folks. They have worked really, really hard in their career, and they've taken time out of their really busy schedule to be here with y'all. So welcome, Sebastian, and welcome, Herculez. Thank you so much for being here. And how are y'all doing? Let's start out with that question before we get into it. How are both of y'all doing? Sebastian?
Good. I was just taking a picture of all the kids in the chat who actually know who Herculez is. I was amazed. I thought maybe his playing days are so far behind us that they wouldn't.
All right.
But look at that. Lots of Tigres love in the chat.
Lots of love from DC Scores. I appreciate it. It's good to be here with you guys. I'm excited.
Lots of love. They're excited. And continue to show some love in the chat. We're all about the love at DC Scores. We're all about sportsmanship and supporting our team. These folks are clearly a part of our team. So let's get it started. So I guess I'll start with you, Herculez. Tell us a little bit about your childhood. What were you like as a kid?
I was a troublemaker, Charity. Let's see. I come from Mexican parents. I'm Mexican-American. I was born in Los Angeles. My parents are from Mexico, Jalisco to be exact, which is a state in Mexico. My dad's from Tepatitlan. My mom's from Jalisco-Titlan. They met here in the States. So I was born in Los Angeles. And like many of you, I grew up in a dual culture type of family background or family environment, I should say. You know, I celebrated 4th of July's, but I also celebrated, Mexican Independence Day, Los Reyes Magos, and what was Christmas. You know, all these different things kind of rolled into one. Spoke Spanish in my home, English with my friends. Growing up, I guess, was like many of you, revolved around soccer. I unfortunately didn't have the means to pay for soccer growing up. It wasn't the easiest of things when I was growing up, having to pay for what is club soccer. I had mentors growing up, one in particular. I mean, your family should always be a mentor. But anytime you can have mentorship from outside of your family, that's positive. That's going to mold you into the person you are today. It's going to really take you into your formative years. And from when the time I was 9 years old and I'm growing up in Vegas till I'm 18, I played in this club called Newsport FC, and that was my life. And Newsport was my life. I'd go to school, and then I'd come home and rest for a little bit, and I'd go home and train in what was the Silver Bowl, this park, this big complex, soccer complex in Southern Nevada in Las Vegas, and I trained with Newsport. I had a guy named Frank Lemon. I'm 38 years old now. I am very old. I'm ancient compared to you guys. You guys have so much time. But when I was 9 years old, Frank was 21, 22. He was my coach. Frank managed to keep 9 or 10 of us together from when we were 9 years old to 18 years old. So these guys, these kids who I grew up training with today are some of my best friends. Kept us together, kept us out of trouble. I don't know what I would have done if I didn't have Newsport available for me in the evenings to go and train. Frank would drive 45 minutes out of his way to come pick me up and take me to training. I didn't have the luxuries of being in an environment where my parents could take time off to help me with my soccer passion, because that's what it was back then. It was a passion. But because of this passion, I stayed out of trouble. I stayed in school. I got to experience some pretty cool things like playing soccer on the weekends, going to tournaments. And that really was my childhood. Every positive memory I have in my childhood revolved around soccer, revolved around my family or these mentors I had growing up, much like you guys.
That's awesome. Yeah, we have some amazing coaches, and I think they're even in the building and stuff. Yo, you have a coach in here, shout them out, show them some love. But having mentors is super important. And, we think a lot of us always have to lean on our family and people that are blood. And I know me growing up, some of the most inspirational people in my life have been my mentors, have been my coaches, have been those people that have gone that extra mile for me when I didn't have that family support. So that's really powerful. And that's really awesome that you were able to share that. So thank you, Herculez. So Sebastian, let's talk a little bit about you, your background. What was it like for you growing up in DC, specifically as a Latinx kid?
Yeah, so I mean, in the nook of DC that I grew up in, everybody was from some other part of the world. I grew up right off, for people who know the area, like the Grosvenor Metro stop, right off the Red Line in Montgomery County, and it's right around NIH, and it's right around the National Naval Medical Center. So you constantly had people from all over the world there. So I think in the little bubble that I grew up in, it was very common to have at least one parent, if not two, from somewhere in Latin America or somewhere else in the world. And I think I kind of took that for granted, maybe until I really left DC. And I really remember the first time that I kind of thought of myself as Latino was when I went to college, because all my friends in DC had been like me, where we were Latino. We were maybe one parent was Anglo-American, was white, maybe was from another part of the world entirely. So you had kind of a 50-50 mix of what you were. And you didn't ever really have to choose an identity somewhere along those lines. But when I went to college, it was like made clear to me, hey, these are the kids who are white, these are the kids who are black, and these are the kids who are Latino. And I kind of fit into one of those categories pretty clearly for everybody there. So I think my early experiences in this area were really formative. I mean, I was really blessed to be in a place where Spanish is spoken, not just in my house, but in many of the houses around me. And it allowed me to both speak English fluently in school, but also maintain Spanish by speaking it in the house in a way that has been really useful to me. And I'm so grateful that like one of the key parts of my mom's heritage that she passed along to me, even when I think, and maybe people can relate to this, when I resisted it a little bit, especially when I was younger and I was speaking English in school. And even with most of my friends who are Latino, we spoke English to each other because we were speaking it in school. And when my mom was absolutely adamant that I would speak Spanish at home, wow, what an incredible vision she had, because it's benefited me in school. It's benefited me in my career immensely. I wouldn't be on this chat. I wouldn't do what I do. I wouldn't have had a chance to do all the things that you read off when you gave me that great introduction. If I didn't speak Spanish, if my mother wasn't Mexican, if she hadn't passed that down to me. So, sometimes the things that we acknowledge as making us different, and we use this word different almost as like a pejorative. Like I would encourage everyone to realize that like the things that make us different are really our most valuable assets. And if you can embrace those, you're going to have a really great opportunity somewhere down the line. And I think I'm just a testimony to that. If my mom had not been so forceful about passing down her heritage through her language, I don't think I would identify the way I do today. And I certainly wouldn't speak Spanish the way that I do today. And I wouldn't be as useful as I am today.
Wow, that's really powerful. And you hit on a really key point about how differences are valuable, how differences are sometimes in this world looked at as bad things, but actually ultimately are things that can make you bring value to different spaces, to different communities, and to different places. And I'm wondering how that kind of connects with our kids, because we have kids from all different backgrounds, all different lived experiences that come together because of sports, because of soccer, because of the poetry. And I've heard a lot of people say that soccer is its own language because it brings together so many different cultures, and it's such a beautiful way to weave in all these different backgrounds because of this one thing that kids and even adults, everyone are passionate about. How have you experienced soccer being its own language? How has that vehicle, that sport, allowed you to experience different cultures and be able to mesh and create a melting pot because of the sport?
So I have a response to this, but I would like Herc to take it first because he's lived in a professional setting what it is to really be in a melting pot in that locker room. And I think he can probably speak to really like what things come down to when you get thrown into these situations, and what that's like on a professional level.
Love it. Herculez, it's on you.
Yeah, it's interesting because I got thrown into it, and a lot of you guys who are listening, if you ever watch the U.S. men's national team play, if you ever watch Team USA play on a national team level, international level, their most hated rival is the Mexican national team. So those are immediately my two backgrounds. My parents are Mexican. I feel very much in touch with Mexican roots, but I feel very much American, like many of you do. Your parents come from different backgrounds. They're immigrants to this country, but they identify with what it is to be an American, the American dream. Well, when I went to Mexico, that wasn't so much the case. It was like, no, you're the gringo. It was like, no, this and that. Until you proved yourself, until you kind of were their gringo. And being in those locker rooms, it's almost a unique kind of taste of what it's like to be behind enemy lines. And I speak sportingly, you know. But then you look at what international soccer is, and I'm sure Sebi can attest to this. When we went to the World Cup in Russia, I played in a World Cup. You don't get to enjoy it as if when you cover a World Cup, because then you get to be with the fans, and sports are a bridge, you know, in this world, but there's no bigger bridge when it comes to sports than soccer. It's the most played sport in the world. All these different types of nationalities, diversities, ideas coming together, and you really don't need to speak the same language because the sport is understood, the passion is understood. It's something that I lived in the 2018 World Cup. I got to see so many different countries, even countries who weren't participating in the World Cup, come together for a common goal, which was to enjoy this beautiful game.
Beautiful.
And I'll tag on to that because Herc and I actually got to experience that together. You know, we were lucky enough. Well, I don't know if he would say he was lucky, but ESPN sent us as a team to follow the Mexican national team and do coverage of them in English and in Spanish as well. Herc was on ESPN Deportes a lot. That was really just an incredible month of time that we got to spend in Russia covering this team. And one of the things that I think I never felt before, but that I felt there, and I wonder if Herc feels the same way, was for the first time in my life, I felt like I was at the center of not the world, but the universe. You know, we were in Russia, in Moscow for the first, 11 days leading up to the World Cup, maybe then the first 3 or 4 days after the World Cup began. And as people from literally all over the world, and like Herc said, even countries that weren't participating, and everybody's wearing kind of, you know, their something that identifies them from their country, you really feel like you're at the middle of the universe. And then on top of that, the event that's happening there feels so important because you know that all across the world, countries are stopped. You know, that's the other thing. Countries are stopped to watch the World Cup. So I think the World Cup is like an amazing example of just how truly global the attention, the passion around this game is. But just like Herc in locker rooms, I've seen it from a coaching standpoint. There's no faster way to make friends than around a soccer ball. And I think, you know, what Herc says is true. If a lot of his best memories as a kid were built around his youth soccer clubs, I would echo that. It was the experiences and not necessarily the clubs, the team, the teammates, that crew that you were with, that you practiced with. And that can be at the highest level, at the lowest level, at any level in between. There's nothing like having a crew of friends that you play soccer with. I think it can not just make you closer, but it can bring you in touch with people who you would never, ever cross paths with and think that you'd have so many things in common with in your life.
That's so dope. That is so cool. And that sounds like such an awesome experience. And I can relate, not at a professional level, you know, but even like when I've been at like watch parties and I don't know half the people that are in the room, but we're cheering for the same team, you know, and just that connection right there, you know, the fact that we both have the same love, we have the same passion for the same team that we feel represents us, and we may be a different color, a different gender, whatever that is, that in that moment, it brings us together. And I feel like sports, especially soccer, there's something special about soccer, because I think it's in every sport to some degree, but soccer is so worldwide. It's such a sport that connects on such a powerful, meaningful level. So thank y'all for sharing that experience. That sounds amazing. So Herculez, I'm gonna stick with you for a second. What hobbies do you do outside of playing soccer?
Well, these days I'm a dad to a 3-year-old, so it's a lot of kid stuff, a lot of hanging out with my daughter Gigi. But before that, and before the pandemic, I love to travel. You know, I've been very blessed because of soccer. Listen, I was born in Los Angeles, grew up in Vegas. I didn't come from money. We didn't take family vacations. We didn't have these incredible memories growing up. My parents worked nonstop. I'm the oldest of 5. They definitely had to put food on the table. So it wasn't like I got to, you know, take time out of my summer vacation and my family had a lot of time. We're going to go here. This is our family vacation. My best memories were soccer trips. And to this day, you know, I always joke around with Sebi, like, I've been to so many different countries, but I couldn't really tell you what these countries are like because I'm stuck in a hotel room. I can tell you what the hotel is like. We don't have time to really go out and sightsee. So I've been to all these different countries, but it doesn't feel like I experienced it. So now that I'm retired, I've been retired for now over 3 years. I love to travel and actually see these places. That's why going to the World Cup was such an eye-opening moment for me. I got to experience what a country like Russia was like. When I was at the World Cup in Africa, I couldn't really tell you what Africa was like. We had a day off and we'd go out and we'd go do safari, which was an amazing experience, but I couldn't really tell you what the rest of the cities were like. So anytime I can now, one of my best hobbies or one of my favorite things to do is to travel and actually experience things. And I'm sure as you guys get older, you will have those experiences, but anytime you get to travel, you get to experience different cultures. It only enriches you as a person. And until this day, I experience that growth that I feel is desperately needed.
Wow, that's awesome. That's cool. Yes, traveling. I traveled for the first time 2 years ago. Shout out to DC Scores. They sent me to Switzerland for work. That was my first time out the country. It was so amazing.
It's eye-opening, right?
It is. It's eye-opening, and it's just like you live in a bubble in the U.S. And not just like, DC is its own bubble. And then South Carolina is its own bubble. And then the U.S. as in general is its own bubble. And then when you travel, you're like, yo, I'm so U.S. I'm so from the U.S. These different cultures are just different. I remember when I was in Switzerland, I went to a restaurant and I'm like, yo, what is taking them so long? Because I'm so used to getting food like that. But they just chill out there. They're like, okay, the food will get here. When we get here, the waiter's over there talking to people, chill. I'm just like,
it's an event.
It is. It's so eye-opening, and it's a beautiful thing to experience. So I definitely feel you on the traveling, 110%. So Sebastian, let's switch topics a little bit. So right now, we live in interesting times. Got a pandemic. We have civil rights movements happening. We have an election that's coming up, and some way, somehow, no matter what you're doing, what your hobby is, what your job is, the world is impacting everybody. And especially in sports, everything has kind of trickled down into sports. And so I'm really curious for you, how has commentating been affected during these times? And how do you stay motivated?
Yeah, the motivated question is a good one, right? And so how has commentating been affected? Well, when there's no games, there's no commentary, right? So for a lot of us right away, kind of the thing that we do, the thing that we're identified with was taken away. And that's, that can be really tough, especially when it's your career. Herc has just kind of come new to this career. He made a professional career out of being a player. This is all I've ever done. So when the games stop and the thing that you most closely identify with is taken away, it's pretty jarring. But eventually, games started to come back. And like everybody else, we had to kind of make our adjustment. And I'm coming to you now from like a home studio, which is, it's just a light behind a set. We can change this thing, I think, a little bit if we want. There you go.
Wow.
So, and we kind of adjust. We do the best that we can. And sometimes we're broadcasting from home with like cats and dogs and everything going on. And maybe it's not the level of beautiful television that the executives at ESPN would have expected on a normal day. But like everybody else, our profession kind of had to adjust. So maybe instead of going to games as much, we had to be doing more studio work and talking around the games. And I think it's been a practice and experience in versatility and patience and managing frustration. Mm-hmm. And then I would say that the other thing is like, it's been a test of your abilities, right? Like when you don't get to do something as much, you don't exercise a muscle, it gets weak. And so like, I haven't called a game. I haven't broadcast a game since March. I'm not going to lie to you. I'm nervous about the next time I got to call a game because that muscle might be like a little weak. And so it's kind of finding creative ways to exercise that muscle when you might not have that opportunity. But all those things are things that we can manage, right? We can like find creative ways around it. We can work on whatever it is that we want to get better at in the meantime. And maybe in a lot of ways, that's kind of what I've tried to do in this time. And we've had 6 months where it's an opportunity to identify maybe some things about your craft, your hobby, whatever it is that you're working on that you want to improve, and then really set about improving them in kind of a long-term way. So, you'd feel foolish if after all this is said and done, you maybe hadn't taken advantage of some of the downtime. That's kind of what I felt a little bit kind of urgency for me the whole time. So I think, the world has changed, so has commentary. And you just have to be better prepared. You've got to be ready for the few opportunities that do come around. And then when they come around, you have to going to tackle some subjects, whether it's like COVID-19 and science, or, kind of what's happening with social justice movements around the world, in our country, specifically here in DC, in our city. These are things that all affect us like very acutely. And sometimes it can be hard to like figure out how to tell those stories in a way that makes sense, yet is succinct enough to fit into a broadcast when you have 22 players kneeling 5 seconds before a match. And it's like, well, that thing is happening for a really important reason.
Right.
How do I condense that down into a way where I can then disseminate it in a respectful manner of the value of the message, but also respectful of the fact that there's action live on the television that I'm going to have to describe and kind of get back to. So I think, in so many ways we're being challenged, but if nothing else, it makes us better. Like, it's definitely going to make me a better, a better broadcaster, and it'll inevitably, I think, make me a better person. Because I think when you have to learn about things that are kind of forced upon you or put in front of you, that hadn't been, maybe on the front of your panorama, you learn. And when you learn, you of course, you're going to improve and get better, both externally, like the product you're putting out, and then internally, kind of like what you are in your product.
I love it. I love it. And what I'm hearing is staying ready, staying creative, creative/flexible, and also just being able and also being uncomfortable. I think that's a theme that I've seen during this year. 2020 has been very uncomfortable. Uncomfortable for us, uncomfortable for coaches, uncomfortable for players. We have our poet athletes in here that are used to going to school, seeing their friends, getting out on the soccer field, going to poetry sessions. Right now, everything's changed. Everything's kind of been flipped and twisted, and it's different and it's uncomfortable. But discomfort isn't always bad. Just like Sebastian is saying, sometimes discomfort encourages growth, encourages you to flex different muscles, which will also make you stay ready so you don't have to get ready when it's time to get back out on the field. Herculez, is there anything you wanted to add to that from your experience in commentating?
It's interesting because obviously my experience is not as extensive as Sebastian's, but I come from a soccer playing background, and now I work in Spanish and in English. I host a show that's not just about soccer. I do all sports, and it's about this, I guess you're talking about comfort. Change doesn't have to be a negative thing. It can be growth. It's how you see it. So you guys can't go outside. You can't practice soccer. Maybe it's an opportunity for you inside in a reduced space to do some ball work, to do different things you wouldn't normally do. And that could be in the long term beneficial to your touch, to your, technical ability. And then when you do go outside, maybe what you're lacking is fitness, and maybe you can do something indoors. You can find different ways to be creative and pivot. You can find different ways to be versatile, because as you get older, you will learn. And Seb's one of the first people to tell me this in this industry. The more versatile you can be, the more valuable you are to a company, the more valuable you are as a person. The same thing is in life. So if you can turn any type of situation where many see it as a negative into a positive, you're already ahead of the game.
Nice, nice. Y'all hear that, kids? Stay ready. Doesn't matter if you're on the field, if you're in the classroom, there's always a way for you to still improve your game. Like Herculez saying, you can work on your footwork. You can work on learning the game, learning different positions, so that if and when we get back out, out into the real world, you'll be even more prepared than you were before. Okay, this is awesome. Y'all giving some really good tips and advice. So I guess, what are your thoughts, and let's go back to you, Sebastian. What are your thoughts on being a Latino Hispanic man in today's America?
What a loaded question.
It's loaded.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think you have to address it kind of head on. I think, we have to be honest. It can sometimes be infuriating. I think it's difficult sometimes to watch the news and see how, Latinos are portrayed, how they're spoken about by people in pretty important positions. And that I think has a very negative impact on the Latino community. But I think it's not a story that ends there. I think what's happening now in our country, like, we'll have a response, and in due time, the things that need to happen will happen. And I think that, the Latino community in this country has always overcome odds. I mean, being an immigrant is difficult. It's really, really hard. I think, having grown up here, wasn't probably until I was in my mid-20s that, you started to hear some of the stories from my mom and then some of my friends' parents of what they left behind to come here, and how difficult that was, and learning a new language and a new government and a new way to work and all of those things. And the success stories aren't mild success stories. The immigrant community and the Latino immigrant community, specifically here in DC, has churned out so many big time success stories. Mm-hmm. People who are doctors, lawyers, millionaires, billionaires. And so I think it's super important to note that, like, whatever's been put in front of us before has been conquered. And the things that are in front of us now, as ugly and horrible as they might be, rest assured will be conquered.
Nice. Whew. Felt that. Herculez, did you want to add to that?
Yeah, I think I just echo what Sebi says. It's I'm sure any type of background you come from, sometimes you feel like an outsider in your own country, even though you were born here, even though you speak the language, the political climate, everything going on, you feel a bit different. It's important to know, just how valuable you are, not only to your community, but in general to your country. I think sometimes that gets lost, but yeah, it's difficult at times because, from a Latino perspective, we see, especially me being in the West Coast, there are over 40 million, Mexicans in California alone, I think, or in the West Coast alone, I think. So it's some enormous number like that to kind of see how we are not a minority anymore, but still treated like one, and not valued as one, can be difficult. But, things are getting better, and it starts with change in your own community. So yeah, I'd just like to echo what Sebi said.
Nice. I appreciate that answer. Yes. Thank y'all for being open and being very real about that topic. And before I keep going, I'm just kind of glancing over into the chat right now. I'm just going to say this real quick, y'all. Y'all having some really awesome conversation, but I saw someone say, shut up. I'm hearing people say some not nice things. So we did talk about in the beginning that we're going to keep it positive and we're not going to spam. So this is the first warning, and hopefully y'all will stop so that DC Scores does not shut the chat down. So that's your first warning. Let's keep the interview going. Sorry, y'all. Let's get back to it. All right. So Herculez, let's switch it over to soccer. Okay. What was it like to play in the World Cup?
It was unbelievable. You got to put into context. I should have never been on that World Cup team. I kind of came out of nowhere. A World Cup is something that happens every 4 years. So the 3 years leading up to it, usually there's a pool of players that play in that process, and it could be anywhere from 23 to 60, depending on the country. And you have an opportunity of making it into that World Cup team. I didn't play a single minute. I wasn't called up for a single game of what was that 2010 World Cup cycle. I kind of came out of nowhere. I won a goal scoring title in Mexico and got on the radar. And then I became one of the 23 players in a country of over 300 and I believe 60 million people to go and represent my country in a World Cup, an event that only happens every 4 years. There aren't too many footballers that can say they played in a World Cup. So, and Sebi will tell you, if you enjoy the game of soccer and you know what a World Cup is, if you experience it as a fan at any level, you have a dream of attending or playing in a World Cup. So it was an unbelievable moment for me, a pinch me like moment. And I remember the first time I realized where I was. I mean, I played in games in the World Cup and it didn't hit me. But when I started the game against Algeria, and maybe some of you guys are too young, but Google Landon Donovan goal versus Algeria. It was an amazing moment for our country. We beat Algeria, last second goal by Landon Donovan. I started that game. It's arguably one of the most important games for the U.S. men's national team that's ever been played. And I'm there during the Star Spangled Banner, the national anthem. And all of a sudden, hand over my heart, I look up and I realize I'm in a packed stadium. We have fans singing the anthem. I'm one of the 11 starters. I look across, there's the Algerian national team. I realize I'm at the World Cup, and it's one of these, oh crap moments. Like, it finally hit me. I'm at the World Cup, and it becomes bigger than you. You get kind of chills all over your body. But it's an out-of-body experience knowing that you get to experience an event that not too many people can say they've experienced in their lifetime. So it was pretty cool.
Oh, wow. That's an amazing story. I was there with you the whole time, all the way up to the out-of-body experience, because sometimes you just kind of going through the motions and it's just like that, oh, wow, I'm really in the World Cup. Like, this is serious right now. I need to pinch myself. So that's awesome, yo. And y'all kids out there, that could be you one day. If you work hard, like Herculez Gomez, you can be in the World Cup and be pinching yourself, looking at the Algerian team on the other side, like, how did I get here? Super awesome. I love it. So let's stick to soccer. Sebastian, what is your absolute favorite soccer team to watch?
Ooh, favorite soccer team to watch. That's a good one. It is, and it's a tough one to answer because I don't know that I enjoy it anymore. Now I think sometimes I just suffer when I watch. I think as we get older, that's like fandom. When you're a kid, you love to root for the victories, and as a result, as an adult, somehow like it's the suffering that really makes fandom kind of unique. So long story short, I grew up. Well, let's make a long story long. I grew up a fan of like every sport, right, and had a favorite team in every sport. And at this point in my life, the only thing that I'll watch and get still angry enough to yell at the TV or jump up out of my chair or give my mom a high five if we're in the room together, because we usually try to watch these games together. It's the Mexican national team. And I watch club soccer a lot, but a lot of that is kind of work related because I have to consume for work. And I'm watching it kind of somewhat with a not critical eye, but like a student's eye, like trying to remember what's happened. When I watch the Mexican national team, it is really difficult for me. And Herc knows because I was trying to pretend I was a reporter in Russia covering this team. I'm a fan. I mean, I'm like the fan is jumping out of the reporter suit. Remember that?
I don't mean to cut Seb off, but I remember being, I think it was Luzhniki Stadium in Russia, and Seb was in tears before the game.
Oh,
it was really crazy to me because I play the sport for a living and I got to see some really passionate fans, but I've never had one next to me that he was so overcome with emotion and joy at the presence of being in front of his team and watching them play in a World Cup that it brought tears to his eyes. It was really a crazy, surreal moment.
Yeah, and think about the World Cup is what you dream of. That's the impact it had on me as a 5, 6, whatever I was back then, 36-year-old dude. Herc got to play in that moment. But when you see all of the emotion and the patriotism and really like the community of a stadium right before this thing that only comes around every 4 years, like you said, and this is so big. I mean, it's hard not to really get into it. And I think for me, the national team is always kind of building up to that World Cup chase, that World Cup moment. And so every time they play, you feel like you're kind of watching a chapter in their story. And some chapters you really don't like.
I think what surprised me most was that you were crying before the game and not after the group phase, which is normally the custom for Mexican.
And there was tears of anger and maybe frustration after the game in Ekaterinburg. We got to go all the way to the city Ekaterinburg, which is literally on the line between between Asia and Europe. That's how far east we were. And that was the last game of the group phase where, Mexico, thanks for bringing that up, Herc. Mexico did lose badly.
That's awesome. That is such a great story. Thank you for sharing that. Yo, hey, in the chat, drop your favorite team right now. Herculez, who's your favorite team to watch right now?
It's not a soccer team. It's funny because I enjoy a lot of sports, but the one thing that really hurts me, like Mexico, the Mexican national team hurts Sebi, is the Las Vegas Raiders. I was born in LA. They used to be the team in LA. I followed them when they went to Oakland, and I'm from Vegas. So the moment they went to Vegas, it's like unbelievable. I couldn't tell you. I was driving back from Las Vegas. My brother had a wedding, a COVID wedding. I'm driving back from Vegas, and the Kansas City Chiefs and the Las Vegas Raiders are playing. The Chiefs are favored by 11.5. They should have smoked them, and I'm listening to it on the radio. My wife was getting so angry with me because I was fist pumping as I was driving because I'm listening to the game, and the Raiders won. It's the only team on earth that moves me to anger, like the Mexican national team moves Sebi to anger, but also joy. That's the only team I could really say I am a true fanatic of.
That's so interesting to see a person that is like legit one of the best players out there that's done it, doing the game, had some passion on the field, and then even off the field can have that same passion for a whole totally different sport, but just have that same love and passion for it, and it just pours over into that support that you have for them. That's I was not expecting you to say the Raiders, but that's so dope. That's so dope. All right, I'm seeing some folks drop some. Okay, I see DC United, Lakers,
Heartbreak,
Wolfsburg, DC United. A lot of DC United, Wolfsburg, LA Lakers,
Real Madrid, some Real Madrid in there. A lot of Real Madrid.
I see that. A lot of soccer, good stuff.
Argentina.
A la Madrid, okay.
I see it. Okay.
Argentina's in there. Liverpool.
Nice.
We got some folks in the soccer in here for sure.
That's what's up. Dallas Cowboy. Oh, don't get that started. We're in DC. Let's that's about to go crazy now. All right, awesome. Cool. So I'm gonna ask one more question for both of y'all, then I'm gonna move to some of our kids' questions, and we'll end with we have some poets here that are gonna perform a little bit of poetry for y'all, if that's okay. We got 2 poets for you. All right, so Sebastian, so you're coach, you out here, you have some players in the chat room. Again, if you here and you are coached by Sebastian, show some love, drop it in the chat right now. So what is your favorite DC Scores moment? What has been DC Scores moment?
So many, man. So many. I'm going to have to give like everybody a shout out here. You know, my first DC Scores experience was actually at Payne Elementary School. And so I had a really, really great experience there, getting to know that community, working in that school. I think I was there for maybe four full seasons, not years, but 4 like full seasons. And that was awesome. And those were my first taste of the poetry slam. It was the East Side Poetry Slam that Payne was on. And so I think seeing the community kind of come together and get around these kids and show up, like I kind of thought I was going to like a middle school play or something where it'd be like a few parents there with camcorders or whatever. And then you go to your first poetry slam and you're just blown away by it. You know, you're really just blown away by it. And I think actually the first one I went as an assistant coach. We were just trying to get our kids, hoping our kids will get through their performance, very nervous. I think we were more nervous than they were until they saw the crowd, you know, and just like us, you know, we hadn't expected such a crowd. The kids didn't expect such a crowd. And I think that was the first time I realized too, kind of A, how long DC Scores had been around, and B, how many people in the community were connected, I guess, to the kids, but also in many ways, I think, to the program. You know, I was taken aback by the amount of people in the building that day. I was like, what? Like for a middle school, like, you know, sorry, an elementary school poetry slam, like this, you know, these two things don't seem to match. So that was really impactful for me. And then I think my experience at Garrison so far has been really cool. You know, I've gotten to really get to know some kids. We found some kids who were so passionate about soccer and wanted to pursue it even beyond DC Sports. And we've been able to find some opportunities for them to continue, you know, especially as they go on to middle school, and not every middle school has DC Scores. So we've been able to kind of get them going, and the little community that we've created at Garrison. You know, I think when I started there, we were very green, and we didn't have a lot of history in the team. And now, not now, but the last, games that we played, and I think we'll play games soon, we were starting to have not just, parents show up, but other kids from the school would come out, teachers from the school would come out. People were starting to get interested in what was happening around the soccer team. And I'll be honest with you, it wasn't because we were playing any like beautiful soccer. It was because we had formed a cool group and we played fun music, and there was a cool vibe around the team at Garrison. So I think all those little events, hanging out with the crew, ordering pizza late, again, the things that maybe don't have that much to do with soccer, but more to do with team, for me have really been the most enjoyable parts of coaching and the DC Scores experience, and especially at Garrison, because I think at that school, the thing that I take the most pride in of what we've been able to achieve so far is we're working on building a good team, but we got a really good community. We have like a really good group of people that invested in the team and want to see it do well. And so I think once you have some inertia, then you just keep the momentum going, and I think seeing the community come together around our little team has been pretty neat.
That's awesome. That's awesome. We've been really, really blessed to have you as a coach and a longtime supporter at DC Scores. So I know the Garrison kids are super lucky to have you as a coach, Sebastian. So thank you so much for continuing to do that for us at DC Scores and being a great person and coach that you are. So Herc, we have one more question for you, and I'm actually going to take it from the audience. What advice would you give to inner city kids if they dream of making it pro one day?
That the path often taken is not always the correct one. It doesn't have to be your path. I had 1,000 doors shut in my face. I wasn't recruited at a high school. I didn't have colleges knocking on my door. I couldn't afford to play ODP. I wasn't necessarily one of the best kids in my state. I wasn't necessarily one of the best kids in my city, nor my club. But as these kids who had these incredible trajectories that would get invited to national team camps when they were younger would kind of fall off, I would gradually keep on going. And there's the same thing with my playing career. Seb could tell you, because he's followed my career, but I had a lot of different teams cut me, release me, tell me I wasn't their type of player. 1 year passed by, 2 years would pass by of being a professional, and better players out of the league. And I would it was growth, little by little growth, little by little getting better at my craft, and always being persistent in who I was and what I wanted. And before I knew it, it's 17 years as a professional, and I got to experience some very cool things. So if at first you don't succeed, it sounds cliche, try and try again, because this is what life is about. It's about moving forward. Seb just talked about that inertia, moving forward, doing something positive, while maybe some people have those negatives, and bow out, is you always little by little try to improve. Nice.
Every path is not always the right one. You take your own path, not everyone's path. What made Sebastian get to where Sebastian took is Sebastian's journey. What Hercules' path took, what path Hercules took was Hercules' path, and that's Hercules' life. And so it's always good to get inspiration from other folks, but your path in your life is essentially your path. And it's not supposed to look like everyone else, because we're all different. We come from different backgrounds and different places. So that is awesome advice. Thank you for that, Hercules. I really appreciate that. So I know that I want to be respectful of folks' time, and we are definitely at 5:30, and we do have our poets. So let's just go ahead and bring the poets on to close out the interview. And so before we say goodbye to y'all, let's go ahead and bring on who we got first, DC Scores. Yanina Chiquez in the building. Yanina, what's up?
Hi, how you doing?
Like professional artist, background clean, yes, no crazy colors on. Can you just let our wonderful guests know who you are, what school you go to, and how old you are, and then get right into it?
Okay, hi, I'm Yanina. I'm 16. I attend Murray School, and I don't know how many poems, 2 or 1. What am I supposed to perform?
Uno.
Okay, uno. Yeah. All right, I'm also Salvadoran, so I know you guys are part of Latinx, so Feliz Mes de Alianza Hispana, or Latinx Heritage. So today I'll be performing a poem entitled Carne Asada. Mi ama looks deep into my soul with a sense of hope that'll make things taste better con amor. She gives me the secret recipe and tells me to watch her work her magic. Let me take you to a trip to mi casa. Para una carnita asada, entras and you see mi familia haciendo el chimol, the tomatoes, the cebollas, the peppers, the cilantro, el limón, and most importantly, el amor. You'd step into the kitchen thinking you've heard someone perform the most amazing piece, but no, it's the tortilleras in the back making stacks. The cracked palms clap applauding those who have handed the traditions down to us. We got the corn, the sweetest of them all. Remember the work we put back home into the milpas, the ones that made our skin gruesa from the kisses of the sun's rays and brought food to our mesa. La carne preparada con sabores buenos leaves your mouth watering just with the thought of it. Don't forget el arroz, made with adobo, con un tantito de sal y pimienta, con unos cubitos para que te quede bien rico. You're left with the taste of a beautiful mix. Just wait for the kick. The chiles asados are last, the ones that hit you in the throat and kind of serve as a reminder to watch lo que digas antes que todo. The ones that pull out the tears de los viejos bien bravos, catching the small grasp we get of the vulnerability from el macho. The chiles that showed you love can be oh so spicy and will make you want to cry. Kind of toughens tu corazón. But what do I do though when I can't recreate the same amor? When mommy is gone, the warmth of the love you felt with the tortillas calientitas will never feel the same. The smiles at the carne asada will never feel genuine. Each bite will never hug your tongue the same way. And then their wise words will start to hit you harder than the chiles. ¿Qué vas a hacer cuando yo me muera? What will you do when I die? Will the traditions handed down to you die with me? Or will you continue applauding those who handed them down to us? Thank you.
Yanina, what? Whoa. Yo, Herculez, Sebastian, let me get some hands. Can we get some nice little...
I'm hungry right now. That was amazing.
Let's go. Woo. Show some love in the chat. Yes.
Amazing.
Amazing.com. Thank you so much, Yanina. Oh, she dipped out. Thanks, Yanina. See you at practice Saturday. All right. And we have one more poet. We got the one and only Kimberly Salazar in the building. What's up, Kimberly? How's it going? Hey. So, name, where you from, what school you go to, how old you are, and just get into your poem. Let's do it.
Okay. Hi, my name is Kimberly Salazar. I go to Washington Global. I am in 7th grade, and today I will be performing My Grandmother, and I hope you enjoy it. My grandmother was a brave woman. My grandmother was an amazing woman. My grandmother hugs felt like summer, nice and warm. But that day I saw her coffin, she was like winter, cold and sad. And sometimes I feel like crying, but those tears just freeze when I think about the memories I have with her. And those tears always freeze because I know she's in a better place. Thank you.
Thank you. Beautiful poem. Thank you for sharing that, being vulnerable, and sharing that space with us, Kimberly. I'll see you Saturday, too, at practice.
Bye.
All right. Thank you. All right. How'd y'all like that, Herculez and Sebastian?
I didn't think it was going to be so deep. That was beautiful. Good stuff.
Yeah, really talented. Wow, incredible stuff.
Awesome. Thank y'all for holding this space, and thank y'all for being a part of this amazing interview. Any last words that you would like to say to our kids before we let you go? I know y'all got things to do, important folks in the building, y'all.
Yeah, I would just like to thank you for the opportunity, for this space. I mean, it's pretty cool to come and share my story and kind of, in my own little way, I guess, help and motivate and impact some of you. I want to say hi to Pasha out there. I know your Uncle Kevin and I know each other very well. Thanks for your guys' time. Listen to your mentors, listen to your family. You guys are so young. You guys got so much to learn, so much to grow. And remember, because it's a negative doesn't mean you can't turn it into a positive. I wish you guys the very best, and we'll be in touch.
Just because it's negative does not mean you cannot turn it into a positive. Take that with you, kids. Thank you so much. How about you, Sebastian?
Yeah, I want to give a shout out real quick because I just saw somebody in the chat, one of my Garrison Wildcats. Shout out to Elijah. Keep working on that ball work at home. We'll see you next Tuesday. Good stuff. Thanks for tuning in. And, I echo what Herc said. At this point in time, things are tough. They might get a little bit tougher, but soon enough, we'll be back on fields together. We'll be playing together again. And just keep grinding, because when we get to do that, it's going to be a lot of fun, and you're going to want to be ready for it.
Stay ready so you don't have to get ready. Get creative, work on your footwork, work on all the great things that Sebastian talked about earlier in the interview. And in the chat, let's show some love for Herculez Gomez and Sebastian Salazar for being here tonight. Show some love, drop some hearts, drop some those emoji things that y'all do, and let them know how y'all appreciate them. But y'all, thank you again so much, Sebastian and Herculez, for being here on behalf of DC Scores. We thank you so much for the work that you do in our community, and also for the work that you do here for DC Scores. Thank you so much. Much love.
Thanks, Charity. Appreciate it.
Absolutely.
Yep, thanks for having us.
For sure, no doubt. Look at all the love. All right, y'all. It's a wrap. Love, peace, and hair grease.